As I was saying that the next session number 2, is all about promoting the agenda of collaboration, cooperation, and coordination especially between infrastructural institutions for the Islamic finance industry. And to discuss and dissect this topic through and help us understand why the future of Islamic finance actually depends on teamwork between infrastructural institutions, especially within the context of standardization of industry practices, I'm pleased to invite His Excellency Dr. Mahir Sheikh Hassan, who is the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Jordan. His Excellency will act as the chairman of this session. Joining as session panelist will be Mr. Umar Mustafa Ansari. He is the Acting Secretary General of AAOIFI. May I also request Dr. Bello Lawal Danbatta, who is the Secretary General of IOSB, to join us as well. And may I invite Mr. Ijlal Ahmad Alvi, the Chief Executive Officer of IIFM also.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This session touches on maybe key elements of this meeting, and I would like in the beginning to thank AAOIFI and the World Bank and Central Bank of Bahrain for organizing this important conference. As we listened this morning, the global Islamic finance has grown in size and geographic coverage, covering new jurisdiction and more institutions. The industry total assets, this includes banks, the capital, and capital market, is about $2 trillion, with a growth rate close to 8.3% in 2017. Today, Islamic finance represents 1 to 2% of the total finance market globally. So despite the size of the Islamic world, the size of Islamic finance is still very small. And despite the great achievement which we described during this morning in different sessions and speeches, I think we are still way beyond the potential for Islamic finance in the Islamic world and globally. And one important question is, what hinders the growth of Islamic finance? In terms of product and services, we have to admit that we have not been able to provide needed services and products to large segment of the society, especially to the corporate sector. So Islamic finance or Islamic bank were quite successful when it comes to retail and small borrowers, but when it comes to large corporate, we still play a very small role. Many Muslims, and also we have to admit that, still have doubt about Sharia compliance. So for many Muslims, they ask the question, the basic question, what is the difference between conventional bank and Islamic bank? When I go there, it's very much the same procedure, the same cost, very much the same product, the same risk. Why they are different? Many regulators, and I try to be here also very frank, see Islamic finance as one way of meeting the needs of those who might be excluded from financial services. So Islamic finance is one way to resolve financial inclusion, but it's not viewed as an effective instrument for intermediation and growth and development within the country. And last, standard setting bodies, and I mean here those gentlemen who lead these institutions in the Islamic world, are quite busy with catching up with international standards, which is very important. I'm not undermining this effort. Standard setting bodies like Basel Committee, IRFS, and FSP. But we are not until now trying to present Islamic finance as an alternative way of providing financial services and intermediation. What we are trying to do is really to catch up with what has been introduced internationally. In part, this very much reflects the needs of those who sits on the board of these institutions, the regulator, the central bank, the different bodies who govern and set the agenda and the mandate and strategy of these institutions, until the mindset of those people change and view this industry as an industry that could play an important role in developing the Islamic world and in developing their countries, we will continue to define the mandate in very small scale, where actually what we are trying to do is to bring Islamic finance to the level of conventional finance when it comes to regulation and standards. And I think the potential for Islamic finance, and we are talking about an industry that did not appear 40 or 50 years ago, but for hundreds of years, Muslim countries and Muslim world was able to provide services and contracts that were, as the previous session mentioned, for example, the waqf, that were borrowed by others and developed in their countries and provided an excellent and outstanding solution for the financing need and the development of these countries. As you know, and I'll try to be brief here, a very important principle in Islam is justice, al-adal. And this is why Islamic finance is focused on risk sharing, not risk transfer, which is the basis for conventional finance. In Islamic finance, on the liability side, through profit sharing investment account, for example, in Islamic bank, we share losses and profits. While in conventional bank, you just shift the risk to the bank. You ask for specific return regardless of the performance of the bank. On the asset side, very much the same. Unfortunately, especially on the asset side, we have moved in Islamic finance very much to risk shifting or risk transfer, especially through tawarruq and to large extent through murabaha. And the key elements of risk sharing on the asset side, we rarely see it today in our performance or in the products that are provided by Islamic bank. On the other hand, I would like to mention few examples where actually the world is moving not to Islam and Islamic product, but to products that share the characteristic of Islamic product. One of the biggest reforms after the global financial crisis is the bail-in concept, where large depositors share the losses in crisis situation. And what drives the regulators to do that, the fact that during crisis, the taxpayer money was used to bail out banks. What they are saying, large depositors who benefit from high return during good times should share the responsibility during bad time. The bail-in concept is not really significantly different from the profit-sharing investment account concept. So during good time, you get high return. During bad time, you share the losses with us. This is something today that is implemented in Europe and other countries, and those who have subsidiaries or branches of foreign banks, especially the regulator, know that this is something they would like to implement it also for their branches and subsidiaries in our region. This concept has been implemented there, and today it's unfortunately in our practice we are deviating from that, especially on the liability side. Last night in my way to Bahrain, I was reading the Financial Times, and given the title of the conference and the topic of Islamic finance, I was trying to link what I read about a new initiative from Goldman Sachs, which says, I'm reading actually part of the article, is interested in providing investment management to the masses. In the past, they used to provide investment management to the wealthy people. Now, with the development of technology, they would like to move in that direction. On Monday, actually, yesterday, Goldman announced that it would merge its fledgling consumer bank, Marcus, with its investment management unit under the leadership of Tom O'Neill. Like, there's no need for reading the rest of these details. But when you go and ask Islamic banks and Islamic financial institutions why we are still linked or concentrated on Murabaha and in some countries on Tawarruk, they will say it's the easy to, in terms of risk management. Conventional banks are actually moving to things that are closer to the Sharia in terms of the Sharia objective, and we still fail to develop these products despite the fact that these products originally exist in our fiqh, in our Sharia principles, and they are the closest to maqasid al-Sharia, the point that was raised this morning by His Excellency Sheikh Ibrahim and Dr. Khalid. This actually reminds me of Bayt al-Sha'r. I will say it in Arabic and then I will try to translate it to English. كتاركة بيضها بالعراء وملكفة بيض أخرى جناب. It's like a bird who leaves her eggs and try to sit on the eggs of another bird. We have the potential to present to the world solutions and products that different from those products that led to the financial crisis, but we insist on really just mimicking what they are producing and catching up with them. Moving to the topic or the essence of the collaboration between standard setting body or those who are in charge of the infrastructure, I think we need to collaborate because given limited resources, this is a must for standard setting bodies. We need to collaborate because I think this is important to deal with international standard setting bodies. So with one voice, we will be stronger and we will be more convincing to them. And we will force international institutions to pay more attention to Islamic finance. And I think it also will be important to change the mindset of the members of our different institutions to pay more attention and devote more resources to the standard setting bodies we are in charge of, and to be able, hopefully in the future, to provide more diversified services that really have the basic element of Sharia finance, justice and risk sharing, and consistent with the maqasid al-Sharia, especially when it comes to developmental objective. With that, I will stop and then move to a more specific question. Well, I think it will be quite helpful to start with a brief presentation about areas where collaboration between finance industry, between standard setting bodies in the finance industry, how that could help the development of the industry and would help also in terms of harmonization.
Thank you, sir.
It's a very brief presentation to discuss about the main points, and then we will have our brothers from IFM and IFSB to discuss some of the questions. Before that, if you allow me, it's a serious conference, but let me take it on a lighter note. That when we started talking to IFSB and IFM, and it goes back 1.5 years back when our governing court first decided that, particularly with IFSB, we need to collaborate and we need to talk to them officially for collaboration on the standard setting part. It's more than 1.5 years now. So it is more like that when you are young and you send somebody a love letter, and then you feel that the other party is more loving you. It was like that. So I'm very thankful to our brothers and to the organizations, Dr. Willow and Brother Ijlal, because when we started talking, it was not like that we are taking a proposal. It was like that, okay, we immediately realized that both the organizations and our organization, we all are on the same page. Nitty-gritty and the modus operandi and all these things, because of our own structures and our own standard setting procedures, might be different. But the willingness was there from day one, and I would like to thank them, their organization, and their respective governing bodies. I'll quickly take you through some of the important points that we have, and then we'll discuss the questions. First, it was about what is the current level of collaboration that we feel. Formally, there was nothing till now. Today, Alhamdulillah, we have signed MOUs, but before now, there was nothing formalized. But we still started some collaboration in the last few years, and with both the parties, and they were collaborating with us. It was including participation in mutual conferences, seminars, workshops, providing comments on some of the exposure drafts to each other, and at times becoming part of a working group for standard setting or the process at some stage. And this is actually a very important thing that obviously we started this thing informally. It is very important to make it formal. But what is very important is about the future, that we need to understand that if we don't work together in these areas, there will be pressure from the global standard setting bodies, and there will be pressure from the investor groups, there will be pressure from the European Union, G20, and some of these pressures we are already feeling. And obviously there can be some areas that we have monopolistic situation, like for AOP may have a monopolistic situation on the Sharia standard. But putting all together, we actually need to work together with these bodies, and that is important for the future. The most important benefits, quickly, if you allow me to take you through. Number one, the better reach to present and potential stakeholders. We believe this is the biggest benefit that we can have around the globe, and better coordinated voice for that. Secondly, we all are running in a world where we have limited resources in terms of human resources and in terms of financial resources. We need to use those resources very wisely, and that is very important, that we need to apply synergy in terms of resources, scope, and deliverables. And for example, by reducing the overlapping thing, and either we reduce the overlapping thing by eliminating it from one of the institutions mandate, or working together. We are willing to work on both the options, but we want to reduce the wastage of resources or overlapping of resources. And obviously, sharing information is very important with regard to the initiative, and in this way, stakeholders will benefit the most, we believe, because they will have more like precise and more resilient standards from all the stakeholders, and we believe that it's a win-win situation for everybody. Another important part is that we believe that there is some transformational change that is needed at the institution level for all of us. Some of us are like AOP is undergoing a strategy project, and we understand that IFSB recently told us this, that probably they updated their strategy. IFM also works on their strategy. So there is a need for change, and we all are aware of it. So we need to work together at that stage particularly, so that we keep our directions right. Let's quickly discuss the threats and obligations that we are feeling and the challenges. Let's be honest, there is a threat of existence and concern of overlap of mandates. There were discussions, we have seen these things becoming a big hurdle in the past, but we are alhamdulillah very happy that we try to resolve all these issues. There are hurdles in effective collaboration because of the structure and framework, because the framework, the mandate, the structure of working, the standard setting procedures, these things are different, so it's not always easy to collaborate. But we have tried to work our way in that. Jurisdictional obstacles, for example, follow different set of standards and third parties of sponsoring institutions. We need to understand the reality of that. At times we have priorities of our biggest obstacles that we feel that are there. Although with the signing of these MOUs, I believe that we have done at least 50% of the work, but remaining 50% at least is there. Because when one of our seniors always used to say that taste of the pudding is in its eating. So now you have the pudding, but you need to apply the thing, and you need to actually come out with something that is concrete. On the potential areas of collaboration, what we have identified from our side, and we would love to learn from them additionally, but some of the things are already mentioned in the MOU, but some of the things were kept open because we didn't want to keep things binding on us, all the institutions. So we keep some area open. So first is the standard development, avoiding overlaps and working together for joint mandate for convergent standards. Advocacy for the Islamic finance industry and joint or supportive dialogue with global regulators and standard setters. Coordinated efforts in training, certification, and similar activities, joint research projects, joint publications, and supporting publications, and joint comments and participation in global standard setting bodies for grants, standard setting process, and their exposure. So these are very important, most important areas of collaboration. I'm happy to announce, with the permission of Dr. Jindal, that we already had one initial secretariat level discussion with regard to the first possible project on convergence of the governance standards, as Dr. Will also mentioned in his speech. So we are already talking on the things that need to be actually done on the ground. So inshallah, shortly we will be coming back to you with something concrete. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. And I'd like to move the discussion to Mr. Jalal for further. How do you see the benefit from this collaboration? What do you like to see in the coming 2-3 years as an outcome of this collaboration between the institutions?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Once again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Actually, the Brother Umar has articulated some of the key benefits as well as the specific areas of collaboration. But I would like to add that in the case of the IFSB, we have been collaborating and working together with the international standard setting bodies in the conventional sector, particularly the BCBS. It has been in the history of the IFSB, whenever we are developing a standard, then you will have the BCBS been sending a member of their secretariat representing the secretariat in the working group. And that is an area that the IFSB has never had the chance or this kind of initiative to work with any other standard setting body from the Islamic finance industry, particularly, for example, AAOIFI and IFI. So, and then at the same time, we have signed an MOU this year, as I mentioned, together with the International Association of Deposit Insurance Corporation, and in which we have already commenced the development of a joint standard. And we have to be very grateful to our council members, the IFSB. They have seen and they had the vision to ensure that we work and collaborate with other international stakeholders. And then particularly, if we can do such kind of collaboration with conventional standard setting bodies, then why not within the Islamic finance industry? And then I feel that we have in the past have worked with IIS, the International Association of Insurance Providers, who set the standard for the insurance sector. We have worked in the past with ISCO, but we have never worked with any of the Islamic standard setting bodies. So I feel it's high time for us to really consider the challenge and overcome that particular challenge and see how we can work together for the best interest of the industry. Because what I realized, as I mentioned during my short speech after the signing of the MOU, that the IFSB issue standards, corporate governance standards for capital market, for banking, and for TACAF. And then we issue Sharia governance standard for the Islamic financial services industry. At the same time, AAOIFI is issuing the same thing. So why do we have to now create unnecessary burden to the industry by giving them a multiple number of documents. So why can't we come up with a standardized, kind of harmonized document? Of course, FSB, we are focusing on prudential, policy matters, and so on. IOP is focusing on the general governance and as well as accounting and ethics issues. So I think it will be very helpful to the industry if we can come together and issue one standardized document, one harmonized document, and then it will make things easy for the implementation. Because we all have challenges in implementing the standard. IOP has issued tens and hundreds, I can say close to 100 standards. IFSB will have issued 27 standards and guidance out. But I think one of the key challenges is more on the implementation. So we want to drive the implementation. We have to make life easy for the institutions, and then we have to collaborate and promote the development of this particular standard. Now, this is with regard to standard development, but there are other areas now that are quite challenging, in which some of them have been mentioned by His Excellency the Chairman of the Board of Trustees, which is basically related to financial inclusion or poverty alleviation, I can say. FSB now we have the initiative to commence the development of a technical note on financial inclusion, which is currently in the global Islamic, in the financial standard setting body, conventionally and Islamic. There is nobody that has issued a standard on financial inclusion, which includes areas of microfinance, collective investment schemes, Islamic social finance, zakat, wakaf, and sadaqah, and then as well as fintech and other sectors. Now, during one of the working group, I got to realize that we are developing this standard, but the accounting, the reporting part of it is missing. So I see this is an area that one of the working group members was suggesting that we need to get in touch with IASB, that is the IFRS standard setting body. And then someone said, no, why don't we go to IOP? Then I said, it's good that you are mentioning this. And I believe that we don't need to go to IASB for guidance on accounting, prudential requirements in terms of reporting and accounting for zakat and even issue of fintech. So I think this is an area that we can collaborate. We would like to have the IOP secretariat being sitting in our working group, and we would like to be having the FSB as well sitting in their working group. So this is another area of collaboration. The third area of where I see the future is basically joint publications, not only in terms of standards, but in terms of research that we can do together. One key challenge area that the industry is now facing is more on the infrastructure financing. There is a global gap in terms of funding for infrastructure. The governments and other central banks are now thinking of how they can develop policies and see how PPPP can be used for infrastructure financing. But at the same time, I was opportune to have a good discussion during the IMF World Bank meetings with the MD of the World Bank, and he said, we are working on prerequisites with regard to infrastructure financing. Why can't you have the similar work on Islamic financing for infrastructure? The same thing. And I realized that there is, in the framework that they have done so far, there is IASB sitting on that. So I think if we're working on Islamic finance, then definitely we need to have the accounting issues being trashed out as well. So this is where an area where IOP will be relevant. So there is quite a number of overlapping areas whereby we can work together. We all have common challenge of resources, financial resources, as His Excellency you rightly mentioned during your remarks. And then we have common members, we have common jurisdictions. So I think it will be an efficient way of utilization of resources for the benefit of our members and for the benefit of the industry to channel some of these resources into a common area where we can work together and provide guidance for the best interests of the institutions as well as the industry. Now, joint conferences is very generic. As time goes on, wherever we have opportunity to have joint seminar, joint conferences, yes, that is very important. We can work together, and I believe the future will be bright, and then we will be seen to be very unified as a unity I must tell you that I was impressed during the last BIS annual meetings in Basel. When I went there, there was a session, one of the first sessions was they have all the standard setting, the conventional standard setting bodies association, in which the GM of the BIBS was the one chairing that session. And they had discussion on with regard to what they are doing with regard to disruption technology, particularly fintech and cryptocurrencies. Now, we don't have such kind of platform whereby the Islamic finance industry standard setting bodies have a platform where they can sit down together and trash out certain issues and they present to the global audience. So that was quite impressive, and that's one of the things that really motivates me and the IFSB to ensure that we have this kind of collaboration moving forward. And at the same time, the future will be more brighter if we have a kind of consultative meetings for the global industry where the stakeholders, particularly we standard setting bodies, will have avenue annually to sit down and review what is facing the industry and how each one will have to contribute in addressing these issues. So perhaps these are some of the points that I can add, and I will be very pleased to answer some questions and give more clarity so that I don't have to take much time.
Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you to you for organizing this session and also working with us on this collaboration. In my view, I think this effort is very good in terms of when we have this kind of second body. I think a lot of time I think it's improving, but we have seen that there is not enough clarity who is doing what. In our case, especially, thanks to our board also, that we have made it very clear that our direction is really looking at the standardization of documentation. And we made it very clear and we went into certain segments to do that. And we have been working on that basis. What we have developed is, based on the official standards, if there is anything to do with regulatory, capital treatment, these kind of things, usually it has to do with IFSB. And I see this, I think, collaboration in that respect. Even accounting, if you see one of our standards which has been quite widely used, and also used by some central banks, including CBB, there is accounting aspect which we have to see. And I see, similar things, we have to work, with IFSB, maybe also in terms of the regulatory treatment, in terms of the regulation work. And I think one important aspect which probably we have to highlight generally, because you mentioned, the general population and all. What I see is that, level of support and understanding with due respect in industry is very low in terms of standard at times. And that is, I think, critical for the three of us to really work on that basis. That we see the importance, see the implementation, we see it's happening, but it is not really in a sort of manner which we see in convention. Another thing which you mentioned about the general population and all, we have to there is a journey, and we have not really covered the banking side yet. So we have to see what we are working. Well, also mentioned is the banking side. So this is what we are doing at the moment. Because you mentioned about the resources, availability and all. So we can only do this work. If we have resources, we can work. Naturally, we can address those also and see how we can improve. But if you look at it, and you mentioned about the corporate sector, there is still what to be done. So we have not been able to, I think, wait for certain bodies. We have to still deliver a lot within our own space. And I also see in terms of when we have sort of information sharing, we have not really worked in terms of the research part of it. If you see the trade finance, some of our standard people are aware is on the Tahafuz or hedging side and equity management. We are now working on trade finance. And if you see the availability of products and research, that is very limited, really, in terms of when we we see now we are developing, one master agreement standards are also globally acceptable by all the industry players. We see, this lacking of product, which is there. And I see this collaboration. Maybe we can work, in a consultative phase, phases, to come out with some product. Because what you have when you have these products, when we develop, especially, and we look at the Sharia and the Sharia board also, we come out with practical standards, we use AOP as the basis. We see a lot of sort of things, which are Sharia-wise may not be possible. Those things actually no-go areas we cannot touch. But there are sort of, innovative aspects which can be developed, which we can do. And one important aspect is, I think, alhamdulillah, now we have seen improvement is in terms of, previously, think about, I don't hear that much, but maybe 10 years back, standards really will kill innovation. But that is not really a true sort of picture. It doesn't. If you see, if you have standard and if you compare it with the conventional, why their markets are deep, why there is more liquidity? Because they have, standards which are they referred and the practice. Those are developed. So they provide confidence to the industry. When you have practical standards, you have regulatory standards, you have accounting, because Sharia standards are strong. But these are the things which I think is collaborative. What I see, we need to really sort of work on these aspects to come out. I mean, seminars what we are doing with ISB also, joint seminar on 13th November. So we are trying to do, certain things. But I see, going forward, working on this, maybe, doing research, maybe, if some standard Sharia-wise, we see some practicality. So we can discuss some standards which are, if you really want to apply, even for trade finance, we are doing now, we see some, their differentiation, in terms of how fee is charged and all, but there is some practicality. Probably those can be maybe reviewed also and can be also done. Other aspect is also, I think, I've noticed, about the use of murabaha, use of tawarruk. This is, I think, another thing is which we have to have, maybe sort of regulatory side and all to see. Because generally, some product we have to understand. If you have a rehan, for example, promise, generally, which contract will fit into the rehan. So I think these technical matters, if you see, so sometimes we have to, go towards murabaha. So these are also things. I think when we sort of, work collectively, I mean, we can sort of highlight these are the things which are some cases, product structuring, what are there. Sometimes it is not enough clarity, to the general sort of practitioner of the problem. So I see, all these things, and then the most important thing I think we have to have, inshallah, we have, IFSB have very large membership compared to LP, the amount of time we have. But in terms of, I think what I see is collaboration is to also have, the membership support to, the main syndicate, which is really critical in terms of, our operation. The industry works, we always talk about, that maybe we are still there. We have progress, but if we work collectively, if we make things clear, if we, raise the common sort of understanding, we can, inshallah, achieve quite a bit. And other thing which I think also Dr. Bello mentioned, that why we have to sometimes work, with international standard setters. I feel we have to now, because we have 12 standards, practical, we have practically every sort of industry, standard setting in the conventional, either in touch with us or we are doing. Like in the hedging, we have done with wisdom, trade finance, we are doing that. We are also looking at something in the code that we have in the setting. So I think, so we have, the reason why, that is also very critical is for us to basically improve and increase the size of the industry, increase the participation level of the players. When you have these standards, I mean, when the standard is good, I don't want to talk too much about the standards, here, but inshallah in our conference on 26th November, we will mention about trade finance and some of the aspects which are the differentiating factors. So when these windows or any conventional institutions interested in Islamic finance, when they use, they will notice that there will be a difference in their approach, in their operational practices. So these are the things which I think the reason why sometimes we can do ourselves, and that's what we are doing. We really don't sometimes in terms of mechanics and all, with due respect, we don't need the conventional. Where we need them is on the regulatory and the legal side, which is very important. The governing law side is very important because they have the and the awareness. So this is some of my thoughts. And again, we are really very pleased and happy this collaborative effort has started. And I hope some of the things which we feel that in terms of working maybe when we have joined sessions, we clarify the role even more operator if there is something, and bring everybody on board. That is very important. We sometimes see that not everybody is on board.
Thank you, Mr. Jalal. Let me move to another question related to the obstacles for collaboration. For many, many years, the three institutions have been working very much independently. And the example of the governance code that was issued is a good example where actually we might not have been able to use our resources in a very efficient way. In your views, what are the obstacles? And related to that, do you think there is a need to redefine the mandate of the three institutions so we avoid sort of overlap in terms of mandate, which would help the collaboration and avoid areas where each institution feel that it's part of their mandate to do something that will result in cases where actually there will be sort of competition against collaboration. If we start with the institution.
Thank you very much, sir. On the mandate part, I have a very clear view, and I believe this is what we discussed with our governance board and internally at secretariat level as well. When we talk about collaboration, we don't need to adjust the mandate. Our mandates are defined. We need to work together to avoid overlapping. Now, let me give you an example. Let's take example of a country adopts IFSB standards but doesn't adopt AOP standards. If we completely chop out some of the mandates from AOP, then what will happen? They will adopt the IFSB standard but may not be adopting AOP standards, resulting that some of the areas might not be addressed properly. While if we have a converged standard which is issued by both the bodies, then for the regulators it's not a matter of choice. They have one standard, converged standard, and they can have it. But with regard to the implementation status, surely we can have advantage because those jurisdictions that are adopting AOP or adopting IFSB, both will be adopting the same standard. This is just an example. That's why we want to say that particularly this issue was discussed with regard to certain matters during our strategy exercise, and then it was discussed in our governance board level as well. And the eventual decision was that mandate and focus are two different things. So we keep our mandates, and those mandates might be useful and that have been useful. But with regard to focus, we need to be very clear. Number one, we need to prioritize what are the needs of the industry. And wherever we can work together by collaboration, by coming to a merged standard, or voluntarily and by virtue of a mutual agreement, leaving a space for the other party. That is possible. Let me add one more thing here. I think that I could have mentioned it very earlier. I would say that from our side, this collaboration or support to each other is not just by way of like publicizing it or just by way of like having an announcement of that. We believe in that, and one of the evidence is that those of you who have seen our exposure draft for the Sharia compliance and judicial rating. For those of you who have seen our SEPA textbook, you must be aware that we are already supporting and propagating ISO success. It's because we want to take the industry towards standardization. It's not about you buy things from my shop and buy things from their shop. It's not about that. It's about doing the right things. And in particularly, I can tell you that at one stage, in the judicial rating and Sharia compliance standard, you can find Sharia compliance judicial rating standard. You can find one place where IFSB standards are put ahead of AOP. They are the first priority, and then AOP is the second priority because we believe in that. So my point is that still putting the mandate is something different. The organizations have their mandate. They have their different sponsoring organizations. They have different membership structure, and they have different status of implementation. So I do think that this part, this mandate part, will be an obstacle if we work together according to the MOUs. The MOUs that we have brought in, they are primarily towards finding the focused areas, identifying the clear mandate, and identifying the convergence areas. So these things will be done. We will be forming joint committees on working on these areas, who will be working along with our technical board to identify those areas, and then we will be implementing those things. So this part is not an obstacle. Obstacle primarily comes from the implementation part, because there are regulators who are adopting AOP or who are adopting IFSB or not adopting any of them. So this is actually the area of mandate is primarily going to impact the implementation part that we do.
Thank you very much once again. I think from our perspective, Alhamdulillah, maybe sort of when we started our work, we made it our sort of direction very clear. So we don't have really as such overlap in that sense. But where we would, I think, also like to work, like I mentioned, if there is accounting treatment, that has to be IFSB. What we are doing, if there is some practical which we have not initiated as yet, maybe that sort of thing which we can also work. And similarly, looking at IFSB also regulatory. And I think one of the things sort of, which is also important, which we have to see is really doing some joint surveys. In my view, financial world is changing. You have seen, disappearance of, interbank offer rates, all different things and different sort of transactions. And then, of course, using conventional reference rate is a different topic, but as industry we are using that. And IOP also have standards. So, I mean, these are the things when the global, sort of markets are changing, and we have to probably, another area we need to do is look at, maybe a joint survey, something which will help the industry. See, what is the preparedness level of our industry? What is the awareness level of our industry? That is something I think, what I've seen is generally, at times is missing. We tend to follow, when something is already done, developed, because they have, long history. That's true, but we are also, I think, quite capable, to do our own assessments that, how sort of our industry, if something is going to be impacted, and what we need to do. I think training is another very important area, which probably can clarify such a lot of things when we do joint training. So that is another thing which, in my view, we would be definitely looking at. So these are some of the things from our perspective. We are, I think, generally the thinking that what would we really like us to work, and that will help the industry. That's the whole thing.
Dr. Bill, what do you see obstacles? Do you see the need for changing the mandate?
Yeah, I believe there may be some along the line, but I think before I answer that question, I'd like to clarify one or two points. One, we really need the conventional standard setting bodies. We have to work together with them. because they have invested resources and capacity in looking at what we have as a common mandate: resilience and stability in the financial services sector. So, as we saw the importance of working with Basel Committee on Banking Supervision, IIS, ISO, ID, likewise, what I'm saying, we see the importance of working together with IFM, IOP, and any other standard settlements like Chiba also as well. Now, with regard to the issue of obstacles, I think another point that I would like to clarify is the mandate of each of three of us. IFSB is very clear, is an international standard setting body for prudential and supervision for the purpose of regulation of the Islamic financial services industry. We don't issue accounting standards. Likewise, we don't issue standards on documentations and product development. So our mandate is very clear. There is no overlapping in what we are doing. So, and I think the only way obstacle will come is where we want to collaborate, and in the event that we attempt to dilute the mandate of each other, then that will be, because each one of us is governed by a governing document, an act on which the objectives of each institution is clearly stated. So we can not afford to dilute our mandate and our objective. But whatever that will drive the institutions, the industry forward, that's where we are into work. Another area where there is an obstacle, of course, each one of us have limited resources. We don't have the resources like what the conventional standard setting bodies are. But I believe that obstacle can be overcome if we work together as well. Easily for us to source funding for new research area, for new guidance area. So I think that's may not be an obstacle, but for now it is an obstacle. Another area that where we have an obstacle is in IFSB we have a very prudent due process in which it involves currently the use of consultants, it involves the use of working groups, the technical committees, and so on. So, and then I believe the prestige and the recognition of the IFSB standard, which recently we got the IMF and the World Bank Executive Board of Directors has imposed the IFSB standard, is because of our due process, because they are involved in our standard development process. To some extent, we believe our due process is to, if not at par, if not better, but at par with BCBS, Basel Committee on Banking Supervision. So I think that our due process is, it may be a challenge for IOP and IFM to comply with, but I believe if we have a common area that we can work together, in that case, that will not be an obstacle as well. Because I think the most important thing is for us to understand what we want to work on, right? That's another area. And then another obstacle perhaps is where we have the team expertise. Now, in IFSB, we have project managers. We don't have people that are accountants. And then IOP doesn't have people that are prudentially trained. They only have accountants. IFM has different set of expertise. Now, when we have a challenging area, perhaps sourcing the right expertise and agreeing on who is to take leadership and who is to have the lead, that is an obstacle that we can as well come over, but it is an obstacle. So we have to find a kind of good understanding of how the collaboration will work together without diluting the quality of any of our standards, without compromising any of our due process. So I think if we can agree on that, then I believe there will be no obstacle, because we have clear mandates, and I believe with that, there shouldn't be any. This is just what I would like to say.
I think Dr. Bello mentioned rightly on the process and procedures standards. And that is really very, very important thing in my view. Because certain standards are really require public hearing, and sort of, you can get segments of industry. At least from, IFM being on the practical side of it, naturally our process is confined to our working groups, which are sort of expertise in the institutions, which involve, of course, the legal, the Sharia department, also in the market and operations and legal. So we just, like Dr. Bello mentioned, these are the things which we have to see, because when we are sort of doing, we have established these processes which are working and which are we are able to produce standards. So these are sort of processes where sort of we have to just see if we have something common in how it will work within our sort of procedures. But I don't see that as a hindrance, but that is something which I think we just have to discuss. We'll have to see when we are collaborating that this process is not really, we can't take something in the just one body and that arranged let's say 20 comments, or we get all of them come and everybody is talking in different things. That's become very difficult for us. We sort of have a process where we get comments and we get and then we sort of work it out what is possible for us to do, what is possible for Sharia wise or otherwise. So this is something which I think we are all sort of understand, but we have to just see when we have something on that collaborative.
Thank you, Mr. Jalal. Definitely, the collaboration is quite important in three bodies, but also the status bodies. And I also have defining a strategy to deal with present FSP and others, including also the World Bank, the IMF, who comes to our countries and assess present core principles, assess the resilience of the financial system in our countries. I think when we go one voice, they will listen more carefully to what we are saying, and that actually will help in terms of changing the mindset, including for the industry of the countries and for the members of our institutions and the regulators in our countries. I'm mindful of the time, and I don't want to stand between people and the lunch, but I have a quick question for the panelists, and I hope you can answer shortly so we can take more questions from the audience. Do you think we can go beyond the MOUs that were signed this morning, which I think is a very important step, to more institutionalize the relationship of collaboration? And do you think that the fact that we have common membership, common voice, could help actually in moving from MOUs to more sort of more formal or stronger form of collaboration? Mr. Omar.
Thank you, sir. This is a very good question, and maybe a lot of us think there would be individually loving to have something more structured and all that. First thing, MOU is the starting point. After that, we will be forming joint committees for identifying the area. So, a structure is there. Inshallah, we will be using that structure to work together. So, that is the starting point. But every long journey, like we say that journey of 1,000 miles, start with the first step. The first step is to sit together, to agree that yes, we need to work together. That is the first step. Alhamdulillah, as soon as we agree on this and move forward in the right direction, maybe we don't need eventually an institution. But if there is anything, I think it is not the right time for that. It may be that maybe after going through all this thing, 5 years, 10 years down the road, there can be something more institutional. But I believe today, only important thing is we all commit ourselves to these MOUs and we start working in the right direction.
I can see that the actualization of the MOU has already started, as Brother Omar has already mentioned. Because we have already started discussing on the IFSB already have a work plan to revise our corporate governance standard and Sharia governance standard. So, and then we have commenced discussion with IOP, and then we believe this is an issue that we already plan to table it to our council for the December council meeting, and then once it is being approved, then the next step is we form the working groups and the committee. So I assured you in the next 2 years you will see a document between IOP and IFSB. But I think for ILM, I'm telling you that I had the opportunity of having some good discussions with Brother Ijilal. So without even MOU, we're already starting something by November of 13 this year. So I think this is to show the commitment, because to us, if our mandate is to develop standards and promote the implementation of this standard for the sake of resilience and stability of the Islamic financial services industry, so I believe there is a strategic importance in this collaboration, because they will be abreast of what we are working on, and they will be able to think of how they can provide the accounting treatment and the accounting guidelines on that. And then Brother Ijlal will be able to look at how they can provide the right instrument, the right documentation of the instrument, and how these contracts can be standardized. So I think there is, on the overall, yes, there is strong commitment from on side, and I believe with the support of our common council members and governing boards, will be able to achieve that dream as a lighter.
Yeah, definitely. I think from our perspective, I think it's a good way forward. We see really great potential working together and coming out with something in the whole package in terms of what we have in terms of standards. And in my view, I think another thing which we really would also be really relying on greatly will be, because our industry is very much driven by regulators. So their role, their support, that is also critical. Because also we have seen in terms of implementation of standards. Last week we did a Kuwait with CBK and kind of with event, and we realized that there is once we created awareness, there is interest to work on this standard. So I think that's another driving sort of force, in my view, would be that from our, we will definitely try our best as far as goes, but also I think the regulatory support we have to also create, what we see here from CBD and some other regulators.
I was reminded that we are running out of time, so I ask for 5 minutes per question. For those who would like to ask questions, please be brief and direct. We have a question there from the gentleman.
Principles-based applications. IOIFI is an organization which is establishing principle backbone of Islamic banking in the Sharia standard or in the accounting standard. IFSB is doing a prudential issues. IFM is doing a documentation. In my view, don't you see that when IIFM or IFSB is making its prudential issues, it has to put IOIFI standard in front of it to see that I am not violating any principles of IOIFI standard. Otherwise, the application will be different anyway. And our intention is to bring the application together. If you leave IOIFI standard and I did my prudential issues in violation of the backbone of Islamic banking, I think here is the overlap. I don't know what is your view.
Thank you very much for that. I mean, it's not a question, but it's rather, I can say it's a comment, right? I want to assure you that the work of the IFSB, we always, wherever necessary, make reference to IOP standards, be it in accounting or Sharia. Even though we have our own Sharia board, the IFSB Sharia board is the IDB Sharia board. And then some of them are also sitting in the board of IOP as well. So we don't have much problem with that. And I think for the benefit of understanding, IFSB prefer it is accounts based on IOP standards. And in our standards, as Brother Umar mentioned, that in IOP standards they make mention of, they encourage the adoption of the IFSB standard. Likewise, if you check most of our prudential standards, we recommend the adoption of IOP standards. So even though we are prudential in terms of the standards and guidelines that we provide, but the underlying principles are still respecting the Sharia principles of IOP. So, and then we have not have any standard which violates the IOP Sharia standards. We don't have. And as I mentioned, the Sharia board of IOP are sitting on the IDB Sharia board, which is the IFSB Sharia board. So I think that slide is very clear. We are very mindful of that. Thank you for that.
Absolutely, I think from our perspective, if you are familiar with our document, you notice there are footnotes referring to IOP standards. I can recall even trade finance standard 14 and 5 and 3, which we are now doing. So naturally, we follow that in our guidance memorandum, so we don't really see. And that's the point I was raising earlier, that some of the standards when we are seeing now, maybe those can be sort of reviewed and see based on our practical sort of experience. So that's the area of possible collaboration.
Thank you, Mr. Islam. I think we have achieved this morning as a milestone. I think the expectation is quite high from the three institutions, and the expectation also as an outcome from the collaboration between the three institutions also is high. We help the industry, it will help us in our dialogue with standard setting body and international organization. It will help in changing the mindset of members of these three institutions and the attention they pay to this industry. And we wish you all the success and the objective of collaboration and improving in terms of standard set for Islamic finance. At the end of this session, please join me thanking the three panelists, Mr. Omar, Mr.